before anything else, I want to ask you all, please don't be gross. Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Storm Collectibles Street Fighter V Cammy in her battle outfit. Sorry, battle costume. This might seem like a random thing for me to be covering on the channel, and yes, when compared to the other stuff I've covered, it is a bit random. But here's the thing. I am not big into fighting games. I used to be. I used to enjoy playing them, and then as time went on, I just kind of fell out of love with them, I guess. The last couple of times I tried to get into fighting games, I would basically get them, play them for about a week, get bored, and stop. I don't like randomly playing people online. And, you know, if I don't want to randomly play against people, then fighting games probably not the best fit for me. With some exceptions, I'm sure, but for the most part, not my thing. But that said, I did have Street Fighter 4 for a while when it first came out, and even though, again, didn't play it online, I still enjoyed it for a bit longer, mostly because of the art style and presentation. And when I played it, Cammy was my character of choice. And when I was playing as Cammy, the blue battle costume was my costume of choice. That, coupled with me looking up a few Storm Collectibles figure videos and seeing that the figures basically come highly recommended almost across the board, I was kind of like, okay, I should get this. And this is a figure that I had been seriously contemplating getting for months before she actually came out. And then when she did come out, I was still kind of going back and forth with myself until I finally caved. And I am actually very glad that I did, because I definitely have issues with this figure, but she's still great. The only thing is I'm not super into all the other characters that they're putting out, with the exception of the Cyber Ninjas from Mortal Kombat. Of course, if I could, I would get my hands on the New York Comic-Con exclusive Cyborg Smoke. That figure looks amazing, but I'm not going to pay double or more what the figure originally cost to get it. But anyway, we're here to talk about Cammy, and this figure is great. Right off the bat, I want to say the quality here is actually really nice. I like the fact that this plastic, it feels sturdy, but it's also kind of soft. It's got a decent weight to it. Like, the figure actually does have a decent weight, and she stands pretty darn well considering she's got the big heel boots. The plastic's just a little bit softer. There's a very slight give to even like the solid bits, and there are several bits on her that are not solid, but that actually aids with the articulation as well. So basically all the limbs are solid, and then the torso section is squishy. No. It's a really well-made figure. The thing that I loved immediately after taking her out of the box was the fact that she was so effortless to pose. It's not like, say, Mythic Legions, which I do like Mythic Legions. I do think they're really cool, but like, it's just everything just goes where you want it to go pretty much immediately. It holds position really well, and it's just fantastic. I just love how effortless it is to get poses out of this figure. It's just so great. And it's hard to really convey through video because it's more of a tactile thing, but I really do love both the posability of the figure and just how effortless it is to pull off. Overall, very impressed right out of the box. Also, the sculpt and design is great. I mean, it's Cammy's battle costume from Street Fighter, in this case Street Fighter V, but it's pretty much the same deal as Street Fighter 4. And it looks great. There's a little bit of, you can kind of see it there, there's a little bit of like darker paint. Either, I don't know if that's a paint scratch or if some of the darker blue paint got onto that part there, but this is a small thing. The detailing is great. There's silver on the buckles, silver studs kind of dotted throughout. You got the gray around the knee pads, and the knee pads have some nice kind of material molded in there too, and then the boots themselves are very smooth and look like they could be made out of leather. The thighs, I think, are actually possibly from Chun-Li, because they did, of course, put out a Chun-Li, and Chun-Li has the much beefier legs, and I could be wrong, I don't own Chun-Li, but just looking at pictures, looking at reference photos, I feel like Cammy's legs should be a little bit skinnier. And there's the belt around the midsection, which is soft but can kind of sit and rest around the hips really easily. They painted in all the little buckles on the pouches and belt buckle there. The gloves also nice in how they kind of molded the texture around it and did the little rivets and stuff. And I also like that the gauntlets are asymmetrical. If you look, this one has the little elbow guard thing. This one does not. Just another fun little detail. I'm into the overall, I mean, a lot of this stuff, like the design, I'm into because of the design of the costume, but still, I like how the suit here that she's got on has that like two color blues, the lighter blue kind of going along the outside of the arms and the center, and the darker blue going up along the inside, along the sides and like the underarms. It's a nice split of colors. It's very cool. The texturing on there is also, like, it makes it look like it's some kind of lycra or whatever swimsuits are made out of. I don't know what this is actually like intended to be made from in the almost said show, in the game, but it looks great. She also, if you'll pardon me a moment as I scalp her, just to get that out of the way. She also has this backpack, which has some nice molded detail in there as well. And the backpack is it's still got that give to it, but it's solid. But the straps are, you can see, not super solid plastic, which is great because it actually helps it get out of the way for posability, which we will get to. But you can see they painted a little bit on the sides for the buckles. They have all this nice detail all this nice detail going through on the straps. They painted the buckle right over her chest there. It's also great that all the different hair is sculpted so that it goes around that backpack, so it doesn't necessarily get in the way. The head, well, okay, before we get to the head, you can see up in there, the collar is also nicely detailed and molded. And there is some nice trim going around there is some nice trim going around the edge of the collar there. And yeah, it's just some really nice detailing on this, which I know is entirely from the design of the character and the costume in the game, but still, they made it in whatever kind of plastic this is really well. The face is the thing that I'm not super into. I mean, it looks better when she's got her little hair thingy on and all that, but like the expression's kind of blank. There seems to be not really much personality here. She does have alternate heads, which we'll look at in a minute, but this I feel like could have been better. The detailing is nice. It's just the expression is a little, I don't know. As for other options for the head, the little hair doohickey actually comes off. It can be positioned in different ways, and there you can see without it just doesn't look quite right. You actually get 3 of these in the box. From what I can tell, they're all identical. I think it's just so that you can either have one for each head or have replacements if you lose or break one. It's got a little bit of flex to it, so I feel like it'd hold up pretty well. And then for hair, she has a few different options. This right here being the straight down hair, because I want to just kind of go with the stock. This is what she's got out of the box kind of look. And they also did her goggles, which I'm kind of like every single one of these heads, something slightly off with the paint job on the goggles. Here you can see there's like a little bit of a dark spot right up there. And then the other ones, there's like a little scuff here, a little scrape there. So none of them are perfect, but considering the fact that they're typically meant to sit up around her hairline, it's not that noticeable really, especially when you're, looking at the figure as a whole. But what is cool is, and this is kind of what made me decide to actually say, okay, screw it, I'm getting this figure, I don't even care, is you can put the goggles down over her eyes. And I'm not super, I don't actually do this, I just think it's a cool option. It kind of helps to hide the blank expression. The only problem is then it kind of, just the way that the hairline works, it doesn't feel quite right to me. This just seems a little weirdly separated up here, whereas when the goggles are up, it hides that seam a lot better. But still, I appreciate the fact that that option is there. Now while we've got her in kind of a more stock standard pose and, I guess, parts configuration, let's do some size comparisons. Here she is with a standard deluxe size transformer, so she's definitely a good size. I want to say she's about 7 inches, give or take. She's definitely taller than 6-inch scale figures. I mean, taking a look at the only Star Wars Black Series figure I've covered so far on the channel, the Clone Commander Kenobi, you know, he's 6-inch scale. She's like Captain Phasma height, if not taller. So definitely a little bit out of that 6-inch scale. And just because he's basically a channel mascot at this point, here she is with the duck tank. So with those size comparisons out of the way, let's get to the articulation. As I said, I love how effortless it is to pose her, but at the same time, the articulation itself is really nice. Starting at the feet, you do get a little toe, which is actually pretty useful. I've gotten her in poses where she's got like one leg kind of behind her, and it actually does hold the weight. The ankle can swing down and up pretty decently. And there's it does the kind of Hasbro thing where it pivots, but it pivots kind of at a downward angle, which still works. It just doesn't actually like turn left and right. However, there's actually a boot cut right between where the boot and the knee pad are, so you can get some left and right turn that way. It does kind of like it stops, like it feels like I'm forcing it too much if I go past that point, but you do get a decent amount of spin there. And I mean, you're not really going to want to turn it much further than that, because then it looked like you broke something. As we sort of saw before, the leg has a double jointed knee that goes it's definitely past 90, because like 90 would be about there, but it could be better. But just because of the sculpt, I don't think it's gonna, you know, like that's not, you got parts banging into each other there, so that's not gonna bend any further. It's still good though. The hips can go out pretty far, can go forward and back very far, and you get some in and out thigh swivel right up there, which can work in conjunction with the boot cut. The issue that I have with this, and I'm gonna have to move her hair again, is that like the belt does a good job of hiding this sculpt breakup up here, so that's okay. Like this is kind of annoying how that breaks up so much, but when you've got the belt down there, you don't see it at all. However, if you use the thigh swivels, if you swivel them out, then it really breaks up the sculpt in there and looks really awkward. If you tilt them in, it breaks it up in the back there, and you just kind of have to play with the positioning to try and line everything up so that the sculpt doesn't break terribly if you want to have her, you know, not looking like some kind of weird broken thing, but it is doable. Now the upper torso can rock, can twist a lot, can go up and down, and I believe, yeah, can also shift forward and back a little bit. So I think there's like a double barbell type joint in there. You can get some pretty good movement out of the torso. And the arms, you got the up and down as we saw. Goes up pretty darn far. I'm gonna put her hair back on. You got the full 360 degree rotation there. And then there's also a butterfly joint in there that this is a little bit stiff, but you can go back, forward. I believe, yeah, it actually shifts up and down as well. So that gets you a lot of posing options just in the shoulders. And the elbows, you have double jointed elbows, which it's kind of the same problem as the knees, where just the way the sculpt is, it kind of bangs into things. So that gauntlet, the little rim there, bangs into the bicep, and you just can't bend it any further than that, but it's still a good range. Bicep also swivels, and I like how it's sculpted to go around the ball of the shoulder, so that way it doesn't break the silhouette of the sculpt, although it does break up the line of the costume, but you know, there's no way to physically fix that in a toy. The fists can rotate and also turn in and out, but due to the way that it's constructed, you can do like the figure arts thing and essentially rotate so you can get up and down as opposed to in and out, which is cool. And I also like that the hands are a little bit squishy, so you don't have to worry about breaking them. And lastly, there is the head, which, well, off comes the hair again, because this is great for like static poses if she's just standing or whatever, but you really can't do much with the, okay, we're just gonna get this out of the way. You really can't do much with the head posability with this hair on, so with all that out of the way, the head can look down pretty far, can look up pretty well. You do get a little bit of tilt and the turn. And while we're at it, let's pop this off so you can see how the joint works. It is essentially, this seems to be going down all the way through the torso, through the upper torso and into the midsection here. And the midsection is soft, or not soft. The midsection itself, there's like a hard plastic here, but then down around the lower body, it's softer plastic so that it won't interrupt the articulation. And the upper body has a similar deal where it's squishy in the, well, mainly in the chest, because that way you can start moving the arms forward across the chest and stuff and not worry about the sculpt, so to speak, interrupting, preventing you from posing. And again, please just don't be gross. So now that we've got the blank expression face out of the way, we can also bring in the looking to the side face. As you can see there, the blank face just has, kind of a relaxed face going. The looking to the side face, the lips are kind of pursed a little bit. And then there is the shouty face, which was going to be my preferred face, but the problem is, for whatever reason, the goggles don't sit right on this head. Like, you can see where the grooves are for the goggles to sit, and they just do not want to go in all the way. I really think I'm going to need to go in there with like an X-Acto or something and carve the edges down so that those goggles can get in there properly. They'll still stay in place when you put the head on and put on some hair, but I don't like how that's basically just gripping by the tips of its fingers, so to speak. Now let's put some heads back on this figure, because this is a little disturbing. For example, here we've got the screaming face with the hair that's going off to the side, and it still goes around the backpack really nicely. And you get way more posability on the head with the hair kind of not going straight down, because regardless of its shape, it still kind of would bang into the backpack, the straight hair. And here you can see too how those goggles just aren't sitting right. But I do like how this works with the hair flying that way, and I also like how, because this is a separate piece up here, you can spin it one way or the other to make it look like it's moving with the bulk of her hair. And here we have the other face with the other set of hair, where she's looking slightly off to the side, and you can see here the hair really gets out of the way. The only problem is it's pointed back, so you don't really see a lot of it from the front, and also it, of course, means she takes up more shelf space in that direction. But I'm going to switch back to my preferred combination, because despite thinking the expression looks a little blank, I feel like the hair kind of sweeping off to the side helps a lot to kind of draw your eye away from the facial expression. And now we can talk about the hands. So in addition to the fists that you see here, that look the part and pull off the fingerless gloves look, she also has two saluting or chopping hands. And here, looking at the inside of the sculpt, you can see the fabric sculpt on the gloves is also really nice. Yes, she's got two kind of chop hands, two splayed open hands, and two more splayed open hands that I believe are meant to be used as like if she's pushing down on the ground. And now we come to my least favorite part of the set, and that is the effects parts. The first piece we're going to look at is this thing, which there's a little divot right there for the tip of her foot to go in, and that you can settle in there to make it look like she's, well, hang on a sec. So yes, this will kind of rest around, what is going on with my voice? This will rest around the tip of her foot, kind of, and then you can pull off something like this, or like, I don't have her signature moves memorized, but like you do something like this, or I believe also like you can go up. And this is where like the hands that look like they're pushing off the ground come in handy, because there it does kind of get that point across. So that's that piece. Then we've got this travesty, which is actually made up of 3 parts, like so. And these peg together, and this caps everything off and kind of holds everything together. And I hate this thing. I hate this thing. And then you basically just kind of nestle Cammy inside all of the wiry effects things. Like, this is not going well. So anyway, you can kind of do something like that, and it's fine. Like, okay, the effects parts look good. They get the point across, but there are things about them that bug me. I appreciate their inclusion, but I wish they weren't there. For my purposes, they are completely useless. They take up space, and they tacked on a bunch of extra cost to this figure that is completely worthless to me. And the reason that is, well, a couple of reasons. One, all of her effects parts are big and chunky, and because of the way that they're constructed, I can't really display her in a basic sense with them on. If I had Ryu per se, I could pose him and put like a Hadoken in his hands or whatever, and that'd be fine. But because her stuff attaches to her feet, she can't stand up while doing it. The best I could do is try and prop her up on, have her laying down on the ground, or try and prop her up going upside down, and that doesn't work for my display purposes. The other thing is, she does not come with a stand. I think that's normal for Storm Collectibles. I think that's what they do, where you get the figure, and if you want the stand, you can buy the stand separately. Ordinarily, that wouldn't bother me. Ordinarily, when I have a figure that comes with a stand, I only have a couple that actually came with stands, but when I get a figure that comes with a stand, it's like, oh, that's nice, but I'm never going to use it. But here, you have a figure with effects parts that are made specifically for kicking. In many instances, either balanced a specific way that could not be done with basic gravity without the use of a stand, or flying through the air. So not including a stand, but including these effects parts that you need a stand to display them with is ridiculous. As I said, this might be normal for Storm Collectibles, not including stands, whatever, but I feel like for what this character is, for what the effects parts represent, for how you're supposed to pose her with those parts, they needed to include a stand, and that really sucks. This is so much weight and so much space being taken up in the box, and I'm sure it tacked on at least a bit to the figure's price, and as I said, I feel like including that without a stand is dumb. That being said, even though I do have my gripes, I still freaking love this figure. The only gripes I have with the figure, not the accessories, but the figure itself, is the face stuff could be a little better, and the weird gaps you get if you turn the thighs a certain way. I mean, if you angle the figure different ways, it's less noticeable, or if you pose the figure a certain way, it's less noticeable. But then you turn it around and the sculpt gets broken up, right there's this big old gap. But then, if you're not looking at the figure from that angle, then it's not a problem. So there are ways to work around my primary gripes for the figure, but I really am bummed about those effects parts. But still, I don't regret my purchase at all. I feel like if you're a fan of Street Fighter and you like action figures, you should definitely check out Storm Collectibles stuff, because they have a lot of Street Fighter characters available. Or if you're into Storm Collectibles and haven't gotten Cammy yet, Cammy's awesome. But that's enough of my rambling. This went on way longer than I wanted it to. So what do you all think of Storm Collectibles Street Fighter V Arcade Edition? Deadly Precision, for some reason that name's in there. Cammy with her battle costume. Are any of you out there Storm Collectibles collectors? And if so, what other figures would you recommend from their stuff? And if this is all entirely new to you, what do you think? Is this the kind of figure quality that you would be tempted to get, that you think would be worth the cost? Because I believe Cammy here retails for about 85 bucks. I actually got her for a little bit cheaper than that. But whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below for as long as you can. Thank you everybody for watching, and remember, art is more than meets the eye.